My wife cheated with my best friend during our 10-year marriage, then suddenly filed for divorce claiming I stole $300, $0 from our joint account, only to reveal she's been secretly siphoning money for herself the whole time. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Thank you very much. Now let's begin the video, using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, but here I am. Honestly, if someone told me a few years ago I'd be betrayed by my wife of 10 years and then find out she'd been screwing around with my best friend, I'd have laughed in their face. But life has a way of throwing punches when you least expect it. It started subtly, or so I thought. Sarah always seemed a little distant lately, more focused on her phone than on us. At first I chalked it up to work stress or maybe just the routine of daily life. We'd been married for a decade, 2 kids, a mortgage, the usual. We had our disagreements, sure, but nothing that screamed end of the world. Still, I noticed she was sneaking off to the bathroom or bedroom more often, locking the door, texting late at night. I didn't think much of it. Women do that sometimes, right? Or at least that's what I told myself. Then one day I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I wanted to surprise her and the kids with dinner. As I approached the house, I saw her car parked out front, which wasn't unusual. But what threw me off was the sound of muffled voices coming from inside. I paused, confused. My heart started pounding, and I hesitated before quietly opening the door. What I saw next made my stomach drop. There she was, Sarah, on the couch, half naked, tangled up with my best friend Mike. They weren't just kissing, they were in full-on sex. I saw everything, the way she was gripping his hair, the way he was moaning her name. I froze. Watching from the hallway, my mind went blank. I couldn't believe it. My wife, my best friend, in my house doing that right in front of me. I didn't make a sound. I just turned around and left. I needed a second to breathe, to process what I'd just seen. When I finally managed to get inside my head, I started noticing other things. Her phone always face down, secret texts, money missing from our joint account. I was already suspicious, but witnessing that scene confirmed everything I'd been quietly suspecting for weeks. The next day, I confronted her. I wanted to hear her lie, to deny it, to tell me it was all a mistake. Instead, she looked me straight in the eyes and said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that Mike meant nothing, and that I was just jealous. She claimed I was imagining things, that I was accusing her of something she hadn't done. But her voice was shaky and her eyes darted around like a guilty kid caught with their hand in the cookie jar. I asked her if she had been cheating and she scoffed. "You're crazy. Why would I do that? You're not even paying attention to me anymore." She claimed I was neglecting her, that I was too wrapped up in work and the kids. She said I was paranoid because I didn't trust her. But I could see her lying, her voice cracked, her face flushed. I knew she was full of shit. That moment hit me hard. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily, so convincingly? It was as if she'd been planning this for a long time and I was just some idiot who never saw it coming. My mind kept circling back to the money, her secret siphoning of funds, the late-night calls, the hidden messages. It all fit together like a twisted puzzle. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Mike. The image haunted me. I kept asking myself how I could have missed the signs, how I had been so blind. I wondered if I was just a fool for not noticing the small things, the missed calls, the unexplained expenses, the way she'd suddenly become so secretive about her phone. The betrayal cut deep, almost physically. I knew I had to do something. I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not just the affair, but the way she'd lied and stolen from us. I felt a strange mixture of rage and sadness. Rage because she'd humiliated me, and sadness because I still loved her despite everything. That love was like a fragile thread, hanging by a thin strand, ready to snap at any moment. But I was done being naive. I was done being the fool. It was time to find out just how far she'd gone and to plan my next move. The days that followed were like walking through a fog. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Mike, and every time I looked at her, I saw the lies. I started digging into the financials. My wife's been sneaking money out of our joint account for months. Small amounts at first, then bigger ones. I found transfers she'd hidden, odd purchases I didn't recognize, and a lot of cash withdrawals. It was clear she'd been planning her escape, and probably her affair, for a while. What really pushed me over the edge was discovering she'd siphoned off about $50, $0 over the last year, not just small stuff, big, significant amounts. She'd been secretly building her own little nest egg, probably with Mike's help. I felt so betrayed, so stupid. How could I have missed all the signs? I was busy working, providing for this family, and she was plotting her new life with him behind my back. I decided I needed to confront her again, this time with facts, evidence. I sat her down in the living room, my hands trembling as I laid out the bank statements, the transaction history. Her face twisted into a sneer when she saw the numbers, like she didn't even bother to hide it anymore. She tried to spin it, of course. Said she was just trying to get ahead, that she deserved some independence, that I was controlling and neglectful. She called me paranoid again, trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. I looked at her and realized how much I'd been blind. She's always been a bitchy, manipulative woman, sweet-talking when she needed something, cold and dismissive when she didn't. She's the type to lie through her teeth and then turn around and blame everyone else for her problems. I saw her for what she really was, a user, a liar, and a cheat. The worst part, she's been lying to me for years, hiding her affair, stealing from us, all while putting on a fake smile and pretending to be the perfect wife. After that confrontation, she stormed out, crying crocodile tears, claiming I was ruining everything, that I was paranoid and possessive. But I knew better. I knew she was just trying to cover her tracks to make me doubt myself. That's when I decided I needed to get some real answers. I set up hidden cameras around the house, particularly in the bedroom and her phone. I wanted to catch her in the act again, to see if she'd slip up or say something that would give her away. While I was doing that, I also started thinking about how to handle the money. I knew she'd been planning her escape, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with a dime more than she'd already taken. I transferred some of the funds into a separate account, just in case she tried to drain everything. I also contacted a lawyer just to get a sense of my rights. I wanted to be prepared for what was coming next. The thing that hurt the most was how she kept lying, even when I had proof right in front of her face. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was crazy, that I was making everything up. She said she loved me, that she'd never cheat, that her late-night calls were just to her sister or her mom. But I knew better. The phone records told a different story. Texts at odd hours, flirtatious messages, promises to meet up. It was all there. At that point, I felt rage boil inside me. How could she do this? How could she betray me after all these years? I'd been faithful, honest, working my ass off to give her the life she wanted. And she was out there screwing around with my best friend, secretly stealing from us, lying about everything. It felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet, like I was losing my mind. But deep down, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without paying a price. I started making plans. I wasn't just going to divorce her and walk away. No, I wanted to make her regret ever crossing me. She thought she was clever, hiding her money, sneaking around, lying through her teeth. But I was about to turn the tables. I'd find a way to expose her, to make her pay for what she'd done. I was tired of being the fool, tired of feeling broken. It was time for some serious revenge, and I was going to see it through. The more I uncovered about her lies and betrayal, the colder I felt inside. I started to realize that Sarah had been planning her escape for a long time, probably even before I suspected anything. The secret siphoning of money, her late-night calls, her emotional distance, it all pointed to someone who was already mentally checked out. I couldn't ignore the fact that she was living a double life, and it wasn't just the affair with Mike. She was also secretly taking money from us, our savings, our security. It hit me hard. I had trusted her for 10 years. We built a life together, bought a house, had kids, and I thought we were solid. But all along, she was plotting her new life with him while I was clueless. The betrayal was like a punch to the gut every single day. I started questioning everything, how I'd missed the signs, how I'd been so blind. I kept replaying moments, trying to find clues I'd ignored. The late-night texts, the missing money, her cold attitude, everything suddenly made sense. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her drain any more money or destroy what little stability I had left. I set up a plan, one that involved gathering hard evidence and making her feel the pressure. I installed hidden cameras in the bedroom and her phone, just to catch her in the act if she slipped up again. I also started recording her whenever she was on the phone or in the house. I needed proof, proof that I could use in court, proof that would make her realize that she was finally caught. Meanwhile, I kept an eye on the bank accounts. I transferred some of the remaining funds into a separate account I set up without her knowing. I wanted to be prepared for the worst, whether that was her trying to take everything and run, or her trying to deny everything and spin her lies again. I also reached out to a lawyer just to understand my rights and how to protect myself financially. I wasn't planning to be left broke or blindsided. The emotional toll was worse than I expected. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and disgust. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, so trusting. I'd always believed she was the love of my life, the one person I could count on. Turns out I was just a fool. Every moment I spent with her, I kept thinking about how she had been sneaking around behind my back, having sex with Mike, secretly stealing from us and lying through her teeth. It was like waking up from a nightmare, but the nightmare was real. One night I caught her on the phone again, this time with Mike. I heard her giggling, whispering, promising to meet him later. I recorded the entire conversation. Her voice was so casual, so full of false innocence. She told him she couldn't wait to see him, that she hated lying but couldn't help herself. Hearing that made my blood boil. She was so brazen, so unapologetic. She thought she was untouchable, that she could keep secrets forever. I felt the last shred of my patience snap. I knew I had to act decisively. I couldn't keep living with this lie, this betrayal. I sat her down the next day with all the evidence in hand, bank statements, recordings, her own messages. I laid it all out for her. Her face went pale, then red with anger. She denied everything, called me paranoid, accused me of spying on her. But I had enough. I told her I was done pretending, done being the fool. I told her I was filing for divorce and taking everything I could, because she didn't deserve a dime of what we built together. The thing that hurt the most was the look in her eyes, her rage, her denial, her attempt to turn everything around on me. But I no longer cared. I was done being her puppet, her fool. I had all the proof I needed, and I was ready to fight for my dignity and my money. I knew she'd try to spin it, to manipulate the situation, but I was prepared. It was time to cut her loose and start rebuilding what was left of my life, even if it meant facing the pain head-on. After I laid out everything, bank statements, recordings, her own texts, she didn't even try to deny it anymore. Instead, she threw a tantrum, screaming, crying, calling me controlling and paranoid. Her face was twisted with fury and desperation. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never cheat, that I was just jealous because I didn't understand her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I could see through her lies like glass. She spun a new story, claiming she was just trying to find herself, that her affair with Mike was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. She said she didn't want a divorce but was forced into it because I was too suspicious. I just looked at her and thought, "You're full of shit." I told her I'd seen enough, that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I told her I was filing for divorce first thing in the morning, and she could take her lies and her money-stealing ass somewhere else. That night I sat alone in my living room, staring at the evidence I'd collected. I felt numb, exhausted, betrayed. The worst part wasn't just the affair or the stealing. It was knowing she'd been lying to me for years, that she'd been using me, manipulating me, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind. But deep down, I knew I couldn't fix this. She burned every bridge. The next morning, I went straight to the lawyer's office. We discussed the divorce, the division of assets, and how to handle the money she'd stolen. I also told him about the recordings and the evidence I had. I wanted to be ready for whatever she might try, whether that was trying to hide more money or spinning some story to turn the kids against me. I didn't want her to get away with any of it. I was done playing nice. While I was at it, I also contacted a private investigator. I needed to confirm if she was still sneaking around, maybe with Mike or someone else. I wanted to know if there were any other surprises waiting for me. I knew she'd try to pull a fast one, so I planned to stay one step ahead. I'd already started transferring accounts, and I had a backup plan in case she tried to drain everything at once. Throughout all this, the emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I'd been punched so many times I couldn't stand up straight. I was angry, hurt, and deeply disappointed. The woman I loved, the woman I married, had turned out to be someone entirely different. She'd been lying, cheating, stealing. Everything I thought was real was just a facade. The trust I had in her was shattered, and I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. I also felt a strange sense of relief. I finally knew the truth, and I wasn't going to be blindsided anymore. I'd been carrying this weight for months, maybe longer, and now I was finally free to rebuild my life without her lies hanging over me. Still, it hurt. It hurt more than I expected. How do you come back from something like that? How do you look at the person you once loved and see only betrayal? That night, I sat in my empty house, staring at the wall, trying to process everything. I knew I'd have to tell the kids eventually, and I was already planning how to do that gently. They didn't deserve to be dragged into the mess, but I couldn't hide the truth forever. I wanted to be honest with them, to show them that even when life throws you into the deepest pits, you can still come out stronger. As I lay in bed that night, I made a promise to myself. I'd get through this. I'd rebuild what I'd lost, and I'd do it better than before. I'd be more cautious, more aware, and most importantly, more careful with who I trusted. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that betrayal can come from the people you least expect. And sometimes, the only way to survive is to take control of your own story, no matter how painful it is. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I got the divorce papers filed first thing, making sure everything was documented: assets, debts, her secret accounts. I wanted to cut her out of my life as cleanly as possible. I also made sure to notify the bank to freeze any accounts she might try to drain further. I wasn't about to let her walk away with a penny more than she deserved, especially after all she'd stolen. Meanwhile, I kept the hidden cameras rolling. I wanted to catch her in her lies, her attempts to manipulate the situation. Sure enough, a few days later, she slipped up. I caught her on camera sneaking out of the house late at night, meeting someone in a parking lot. I saw her hand in her purse, exchanging something with a man I didn't recognize. My stomach clenched. I already knew who it was: Mike. She was still lying, still cheating, even after I'd laid out all the evidence. That was the moment I knew I had to act decisively. I called my lawyer, shared the footage, and asked about the next steps. We decided to serve her with the divorce papers and a motion for full financial disclosure. I also hired a private investigator to follow her, just to see if she was still up to her old tricks. I needed to be sure she wasn't hiding anything else or planning to run away with more of our money. The court proceedings moved quickly, thanks to the overwhelming evidence I had. She tried to fight it, of course, calling me controlling, accusing me of trying to ruin her life. She even tried to claim I'd been abusive, which was so laughable I almost couldn't believe she'd say it. But the evidence was solid. Her secret bank accounts, the recordings, the texts, all painted a clear picture of her deception. The judge saw through her lies and granted the divorce, awarded me custody of the kids, and ordered her to pay back the stolen money. Throughout this process, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Relief because I finally had the truth out in the open, and I could start rebuilding my life. But emptiness because I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd married. I kept replaying the memories, trying to understand how she could do this to me after a decade. It's humbling, realizing that sometimes the person you trust most is the one who can hurt you the deepest. In the aftermath, I started focusing on myself and my kids. I rented a new place, one far away from her toxic influence. I also began therapy trying to process the betrayal. It's not easy, but I know I need to heal. I've learned that trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deeper than I ever thought possible. Still, I refuse to let her define my future. I want to be a better man for myself and for my children. Looking back, I see now that I was blind for a long time. I ignored the small signs, the little lies, the secretive behavior. I thought I was doing everything right, working hard, providing, loving. But love isn't enough when someone is fundamentally dishonest. I should have seen the warning signs earlier, but I was too wrapped up in our life to notice. Now I understand that sometimes you have to walk away to save yourself. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: trust your instincts. When something doesn't feel right, dig deeper. Don't ignore the red flags, and don't be afraid to walk away if someone shows you they're not worth it. I lost a lot, but I gained clarity. I gained the strength to start over. And I learned that, even in the darkest moments, you can find a way to rise again. Looking back now, I realize that the biggest lesson I took from all this is how fragile trust really is, and how easy it is to lose it when you're not paying attention. I thought I knew Sarah, thought she was the woman I'd spend my life with. Turns out, I was just a fool trusting someone who was planning her escape behind my back for years. The betrayal was a punch to the gut, but what hurt even more was realizing how much I'd ignored the signs. The whole ordeal changed me. I'm not the same man I was 10 months ago. I learned to read between the lines, to listen to my gut, and most importantly, to stand up for myself. I don't take things at face value anymore. I've become more cautious, more aware of the subtle ways people can manipulate and deceive. And I've learned that sometimes, the only way to truly protect yourself is to cut out the toxic people, no matter how much you love them or how much history you share. My kids are my anchor through all this mess. They're too young to understand everything, but I want them to see that even when life throws you into the deep end, you can come out stronger if you hold onto your integrity. I've made sure to be honest with them, to show them that it's okay to feel hurt but never okay to be a doormat. I want them to grow up knowing their worth and understanding that no one, not even a spouse or a best friend, has the right to treat them badly or steal from them emotionally or financially. As for Sarah, I hope she eventually faces what she's done. I hope she realizes that her choices have consequences. I hope she learns that lying and cheating only lead to loneliness and regret. But honestly, I don't care anymore. Her actions push me to the edge, but I refuse to let her destruction define my future. I've started over, slowly, carefully, and I'm finally beginning to rebuild a life that's honest and true. This whole experience has left scars, no doubt, but it's also given me a new perspective on relationships, trust, and myself. I now know that I can survive betrayal. Hell, I can thrive despite it. I've learned that sometimes the only way to move forward is to face the pain head-on and come out stronger on the other side. So, to anyone out there dealing with similar betrayal, trust your instincts, protect your heart, and never settle for less than you deserve. People will lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate, but your worth isn't determined by their actions. It's determined by how you choose to respond. And in the end, I know I'll be okay. Because I've learned that even after the worst betrayal, life goes on, and sometimes it's better than you ever imagined.